Irish Media Network. We entertain.
Good afternoon, folks, and welcome to Irish Media Network Sports Update. I'm your host, as always, Joe Caulfield, and welcome to the show. Now, soccer fans out there will have really enjoyed the last week's quarter-final action in the Champions League, also the semi-final of the Europa League. We're going to be chatting about the hammering Barcelona took to Bayern Munich. We're going to be talking about Man City's shock exit to Lyon, and also Manchester United getting beaten by Sevilla last night. Joining me on this week's show, I'm delighted to say, back for a second time, didn't have enough footage with the first time around, is Kev Egan, CNN sports broadcaster and presenter of Kickin Off with Kev Egan. How are things, mate?
I'm wonderful, Joe. I hope you and your family are keeping well during quarantine, yeah?
We do our best. How are you keeping in Atlanta?
Fine. It's a strange time. You know, I'd love to think that we could be doing as well as Ireland in terms of handling this and dealing with this. But I go down to my local town here and every bar and restaurant to be out the door busy. So it's kind of infuriating in a way. Because I'd like to get back to work. I'd like to get back to some semblance of normality and keep people from dying, the main thing, really. And it's not happening right now over here. The cases continue to rise. So hopefully we can get a vaccine soon and end this thing.
Hopefully, man. We can only live in hope and do our best, you know, on an individual basis. Wear a mask, keep a distance, wash your hands. More than that, you cannot do. At least you were sitting at home with your own family. I saw your little fella and yourself were watching quarterfinals of the Champions League last week. Are you enjoying the return of European football?
Oh, that's an understatement. I tell you what, the last week of European action has been maybe the most enjoyable week of just consuming the game because we've needed it. The absence of fans hasn't been as much of a miss as I expected, and partly because the one-off games at a neutral location has added that extra bit of spice to it. And I think most people coming away from this week said, God, bring this on every year. But the reality is UEFA is never going to go for that because you're looking at lost revenue from two-legged games and the fact that fans would be asked to pay an awful lot more money by traveling to a neutral venue. I just can't see that happening. But it's been a joy while we've had it.
Yeah, and you're right in that it turns up some kind of surprise results. Generally, the favorite going into a two-leg match will usually come out on top. Like you would speculate that if City had another crack at Lyon next week, that they might be able to reverse the situation and come out on top for a semi-final win. But in a one-off 90-minute match, anything can happen.
It's true, and that's why cup competition is always so special. Over in Spain, for the longest time, I believe it's changed recently, in the Copa del Rey, they'd have two legs. And Barcelona could lose to Cadiz, a smaller team from the lower tiers, and yet they bring them back to the Camp Nou and wallop them. So there's no fun involved in that. So I'd much prefer this, where if Lyon can get it right, Rudy Garcia has his team set up the way he wants to, they can go and take out a Man City. Or if Leipzig under Julian Nagelsmann, again, can spring a surprise against Atletico Madrid. So I certainly didn't expect any of those results. Predictions were way off, as were everyone's, I think. But yeah, let's dive into it and get stuck into the detail.
100%, man. I'd love to start at the top and talk about Bayern Barcelona. Man, when I was watching this match, and as the 6th, 7th, 8th goals were going in, I was honestly sitting there thinking, this is like watching the fall of Rome. Yeah. This is like watching the crumbling of an empire, because they've been so dominant in Europe for the last 15 years. To see such a demolition by Bayern Munich was just awe-inspiring almost. In terms of the after effects, the implications of that, so obviously there's an emergency meeting in the Camp Nou happening right now. It's likely that Quique Setien is going to be sacked over it, or is going to be sacked regardless. What will be the long-term effects? What's the significance of the hammering they took to Bayern on Thursday night for Barcelona FC?
Hopefully the elections will be brought forward a year. There next year. Hopefully, Josep Bartomeu is out the door. The club has been so poorly run since the club last won the Champions League against Juventus back in 2015. Every single year, nearly, there's been an embarrassment in the Champions League. But it's not only that, it's the manner in which they've gone about their transfers. You look at, even back then, a guy like Arda Turan, who's been absolutely milking it at Barcelona, continuing to take home paychecks for being out the door at a different club. The manner in which they used the Neymar cash. Neymar wanted to leave, and that was the domino effect. After the 2015 win, he wanted out the door, and he finally got his wish. You bring in Coutinho, you bring in Ousmane Dembele. Coutinho scores 2 against Barcelona the other day for Bayern Munich. Barcelona's 3 most expensive players of all time, Joe, were on the bench in that game. Barcelona against Bayern Munich. You had 2 for Barcelona and Coutinho for Bayern Munich. You had Griezmann and Dembele. That just goes to show you how poorly this club has been run. 6 of the starting team that beat Juventus in 2015 were also starting this game against Munich. Again, it speaks to how the team has not evolved, how a manager or one manager for that, Luis Enrique was in charge in 15, Ernesto Valverde since then, and obviously he got the sack when Barcelona were top of the league, and Quique Setien comes in and was never really the right call. Quique Setien was a man that he openly admires Barcelona and supports the club. He once stopped Sergi Busquets when he was managing Las Palmas against Barcelona. He stopped Busquets after the game for a photograph and asked him for his jersey. This is the guy you brought in as manager. So it's a curious situation there. Transfers need to be better. Bring in Ansu Fati, bring in Ricky Puig, bring in the younger players from La Masia, and focus on the identity of the club, because it's been lost over the past 5 years.
And then in terms of so that's progressive. That's doing the right things. In terms of root and branch change, who would you get rid of? Like there's talk of Messi. They're saying that he hasn't asked for a transfer yet, that he won't leave. Would you get rid of him at this stage?
No. Messi may be the problem. Messi may be a problem, I should say, because he's notoriously difficult when you want to shape an entire team. Like you look at Bayern Munich, the machine that is Munich right now under Hansi Flick. Messi, you have to accommodate him. And I just felt there was something fundamentally wrong with that side the other day when you play a 4-4-2 against this Bayern Munich team, and a 4-4-2 which has 2 strikers that don't defend. Now, I was actually getting annoyed watching Lionel Messi. I may be the biggest Messi fan of the planet. I love the guy. I drink cups of tea out of Lionel Messi mugs.
I can see it in the background over your right shoulder.
So I'm a huge Messi fan and always have been. However, when you're the captain of the club and when you're up against it, and you drop your head and you essentially give up the way Messi did the other day, I can't defend him. And I've defended Messi so much. For Argentina, I'll always defend him because of the mess that is the Argentine Federation and the lack of talent around him. But when I look at that 11 the other day, to ship 8 goals, wholesale changes are needed. Clement Lenglet is not good enough. Gerard Piqué is past it. Sergi Busquets. What was Sergi Busquets doing? Pressing. And this is not on him. This is on the coaching staff. Sergi Busquets was pressing like a 10 or a 9 the other day. I've never seen Sergio Busquets as high in all my life. And Thomas Muller had this playground to have fun in behind Busquets and obviously destroyed him. Busquets, his time looks to be up now as well. Luis Suarez, for sure. He hasn't run in a few years. Yeah. I struggle right now to believe that this team has fallen so far. Sir Alex Ferguson, the greatest gift he's ever had as a manager, I think, is knowing when to turn it and when to decide to say Jaap Stam, Roy Keane. The list goes on of players that he's had to say goodbye to when many thought they were at their prime. But Ferguson found a way to reinvent his team and continued to have success. Barcelona have failed drastically at that.
But can Barcelona do that with Lionel Messi in the team?
Yeah.
Can they really execute root and branch change in that team if effectively you're going to have to bring other players in with the view to how do I play this guy in a team built around Messi?
You know, it's a wonderful question because my answer is part emotional here, and I don't want to see Lionel Messi leave after losing 8-2. That's not how I want to see the greatest player in my mind that's ever played the game leave his club. Messi is Barcelona right now, and I don't want to see that happen. I think players around him, you need to add pace. Messi has, you know, it's funny how Ronaldo's gone one way on the pitch. Ronaldo's moved further forward. Messi's moved further back. And I could see Messi being more of a playmaker and add pace around him. And someone like Ansu Fati, the 17-year-old, is a star in the making. So bring in players like that. And it is going to be Ronald Koeman, I've heard, as the manager. So you better find a way to get him to work with Messi. There'd be absolute uproar if Lionel Messi left after an 8-2 loss. Yeah,
it would be. It'd be such a sad way for the greatest, as you say, to leave his club. And
I suppose I haven't even answered your question, Joe. I'm afraid to answer it. Part of me thinks you're right, though. A part of me thinks that those changes are just too much right now. If you were to get rid of Messi, you're getting rid of still the best player on the planet. I don't care what anyone says. He's still the greatest player on planet Earth.
What I'm actually thinking about is this, like, I know it might be cynical, but the way I'm looking at it is that if you sold Messi now, how much will you get from him? And how many players can you buy into a team to rebuild it off the back of selling one player?
But look, do you have any confidence in the board? Look what they did with the Neymar money.
Yeah,
and I have no confidence in this board. If they brought in, let's say Messi's 33. Let's say he sold for 120 million or 150 million, given that he's going to bring, whether it's Man City or PSG, whoever it is, or Inter Miami, he's going to bring in so much marketing money. Yeah. I still think it's worth you keep him. You absolutely keep him, because he needs leaders around him as well. Messi's never been the vocal leader like a Roy Keane that we've seen on the pitch before. And I was just utterly disappointed in him the other day to see him drop the head and essentially throw his toys out of the pram and give up in that game. And when you see him lose the ball in midfield and stop running, if I'm Frankie de Jong or if I'm Sergio Roberto, I'm furious at my captain, the greatest player ever. I'm mad because you're not helping out here.
Yeah, no, like I completely agree with it. And like I don't know how fair it is to lump a huge amount of criticism at him in terms. So what I'm thinking about is like the performance of Messi as a captain on Friday is inexcusable. But Messi isn't Roy Keane. Messi's the greatest footballer who ever played the game. He's not the greatest captain who ever played the game. So to expect the same standards as a captain of him that you expect of him as a player,
I completely agree.
At the end of the day,
no. My criticism is that he stopped running.
No, you're right.
So on that front, you look at it, and obviously it was taking an emotional toll on him as well. But when you look at the France game from 2018, when they lost 4-3, Messi left everything out on the pitch. He was harassing players. He was winning the ball back in his own half. He was doing everything in his own power to carry Argentina over the line. And I just saw a player who was just so furious at the football club. And that's not his fault. Everything else is not his fault. But I still expect the captain and the team not to give up in the way I thought he did. Yeah. He's better than that. Yeah.
Completely agree with you. On the other side of the coin, how good were Bayern Munich? I know, like, they were clinical in front of goal. They were ruthless. How much can we tell about them from that game, though?
I think that's a great question, because now all of a sudden, I think they'll beat Lyon. But if they go up against PSG in a final, and I shouldn't dismiss Lyon. Lyon ousted Juventus and Manchester City, and Lyon have pace up front. Moussa Dembele, Memphis Depay, Cornet on the left hand side. They've got players and a wonder kid in Oussem in midfield who can really cause problems for Bayern Munich. But Bayern Munich, they're physical specimens. This team, you look at the back line of Alaba and Boateng and how physically strong they are and fast they are, and that affords them to play that defensive line so high up the field that
the press is insane.
It's insane. They suffocate teams, but that is where other teams could find some form of weakness in Bayern Munich, because Boateng and Alaba tend to be at the halfway line, really. So if you go up against the PSG, I'm playing Kylian Mbappe off the shoulder, the last defender, and I'm looking for fun in behind. I'm looking for Neymar to pull the strings, and certainly Lyon and Rudy Garcia have had their game plan nailed perfectly in the past two games, and they will find fun, because City also play a high line, and that's where the third goal, or the second goal, I think, came from. Even though I felt it should have been a free kick, I thought it was a trip on American report. So I to answer your question, Bayern Munich are exceptionally good, and the most underrated of all of them is Hansi Flick, the coach. This is a guy who was an assistant in 2014 when they won the World Cup with Jogi Löw. He came in for Niko Kovac, completely steadied the ship. He's playing Thomas Muller in his best position. He broke a Bundesliga record for assists this past year. He's brought in Alphonso Davies to the starting team, who's now the best left back in the world, bar none. And I'm including Andy Robertson in that conversation. Alphonso Davies is just that complete. And also, you look at what he's done for a guy like Kimmich, whether it's bringing him into centre midfield, now bringing him back to right back. I'm amazed by how well he's done and how few people are actually talking about him. Yeah.
Well, I suppose when the team is humming that well, they get all the praise. When they break down a capitulate, it's all on the manager. In terms of, I was thinking about this because Lyon did put a huge upset on City, and we can talk about Pep's questionable tactics going into that game in a second. But if you were to set up a trap for Bayern Munich, that high press, putting 6 or 7 players pushing right up the pitch and leaving 2 centre halves in behind, where can they exploit that? Is it possible? Can you see it being done?
I just wonder, will he play Moussa Dembele? Because he was annoyed he didn't start, and then he obviously had a big role to play when he came off the bench. Memphis Depay is no slouch either. He's quick. I think threading that needle and finding guys on the ball. Oussem is a 22-year-old Frenchman who's been starting for Lyon since he was 18, and he's someone who I've always liked when I've covered Ligue 1. And I just hope that he gets a chance to get on the ball and find those passes in behind, because I do think that's pretty much their only outlet, is to catch Bayern Munich in transition. Bayern Munich will suffocate them. Marcelo had a day he'll never forget at the back. Denier also had a day that he'll never forget as well. I just can't see Lyon being as good. Remember, this is a team, Joe, that finished 7th in Ligue 1. There's a reason, and they were furious that the league obviously finished early. They have to do well. They have to win the Champions League in order to get back in next year, which is a tough ask. But all in all, Rudy Garcia so far has proven what a good coach he is. Yeah,
he's earned his stripes in that semi-final, at least. Sorry, that quarterfinal, at least. But let's talk about that then. You look at Man City, the players they have, they're managed by Pep Guardiola, the money that has been spent on that team. And this is no disrespect to Lyon whatsoever, but they are a team that will finish 7th in the French league. How do Man City lose that match?
I think Pep Guardiola has to take one on himself here. I think he made a big mistake. He swapped out Phil Foden for Garcia at the back, and he pushed Fernandinho into midfield. Now, Fernandinho was playing alongside Rodri. I don't think you need both those players. I think you need one of them. One of them in the 6 role, and then you need a Bernardo Silva, Phil Foden, Riyad Mahrez, David Silva. One of those 4 needed to play. And obviously, when Mahrez came in the second half, it was a completely different game. So I think Pep made a big mistake at the back. And you just don't
think you underestimated Lyon?
No, actually the opposite. I think he gave them far too much credit, because he brought in an extra defensive-minded player, and he really tried to nullify them. He saw what they did to Juventus and tried to nullify them rather than playing his own game. And that's a big mistake. When you're Manchester City, that's a big, big mistake. And Pep obviously realised at half-time, brought in Mahrez. It was a different game. And after that, I felt they were robbed with that second goal that came seconds after. Well, Sterling's miss would have brought it to 2-2. Worst miss I've ever seen. Up there, one of the worst misses anyway. And then Ederson's is one of the worst saves I've ever seen. Yeah. So they can call themselves unlucky, but same as Manchester United in the Europa League. When you miss those gilt-edged chances and then you defend like that, you deserve it.
Yeah, you're asking for trouble. In terms of the mindset of that City camp right now, they lost the Premier League by a huge margin, and that's fine, because Liverpool were exceptionally good this year. And it was not only presumed by the media, but also indicated by Pep that his sole focus was on the Champions League. They go out in quarterfinal stage to Lyon. How do you remotivate those players? What's going to happen now in the City camp between now and the start of the Premier League season?
And that's the crucial point here, Joe, is that the start of the Premier League season is only a few weeks away. So it's not like they even have that much time. You see images of Liverpool and having fun at training. They're in the midst of their pre-season, as is the rest of the Premier League teams. Man City have to somehow regroup, and I think it's going to hit them hard. De Bruyne did an interview straight after the game that I thought was fascinating, and he was pretty much critical of Pep Guardiola and critical of the entire club. And he said, we are not good enough right now. We're making too many mistakes. And he actually mentioned Sterling and he mentioned Ederson in his interview, and he looked really annoyed. And I just wonder, will someone like him look and say, I'm ready for a move? I wonder, will Pep Guardiola say, I'm ready for a move? And I'm surprised that maybe Barcelona weren't calling him and saying, Pep, come back to us, make it work alongside Messi, and get the best out of him again. I'd say they're hurting right now, and they've got moves to make, because they lose David Silva, who was a quiet leader within that team. Garcia, the centre-back, looks to be on his way to Barcelona. And they've got some things to figure out. Pep's got to stop overthinking these big games. And that's been the biggest criticism of Pep over the last few years, is that maybe he overanalyzes and he makes changes to his team to counteract the opponent, when he should just focus on his team and how good they are.
Yeah, because they have the talent to do it. It'll be interesting to see, particularly with De Bruyne. He's PFA Player of the Year this year, and he has no trophies to show for it. At some point, you have to think, when is a better time to leave a club? Like, when is my stock going to be higher without having a Premier League medal around my neck?
I think he's the best midfielder in the world. I think every single team in the world would want him. What's Kevin De Bruyne going to cost? My guess is a world record transfer fee. When you've got a player who's the star for the #1 ranked team in the world, and he's still at a prime age, mid-20s. I think Kevin De Bruyne would probably go for, I think the price would probably be 250 million. And the reality is, in the midst of a crisis, a global pandemic, there's no one paying that money. So my thoughts are De Bruyne goes nowhere.
Yeah, very interesting. It'll be very interesting to see what happens in the next kind of month or so. Moving on slightly to the Europa League, United, again, this is no disrespect to Sevilla or anything like that, but they lost probably unexpectedly to Sevilla last night in the semi-final stage. For me, it was quite a wake-up call, because I felt at the end of the Premier League season, finishing third, as a United fan, we were on such a high. But I think last night was a massive wake-up call that this team has a lot of limitations in terms of challenging for a Premier League title, challenging in Europe for a Champions League title. They still have a long way to go in terms of developing and building strength. What's your thoughts on that?
Agree. I think there's definitely holes in this team. Lindelof was a mistake or two that cost United again. David De Gea is not good enough on the ball. I definitely think this team needs help. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was quick to point that out afterwards, talking about how he needs quality. Now, they've spent a boatload of cash. Another club, similar to Barcelona, that have gotten it wrong more so than right in the transfer market. But I do also think that there's an incredible Premier League bias in our coverage of the game that is just so sickening, because how people are calling this a big upset and how people are calling this a shock, I don't get it, Joe. I don't get it. Right. Sevilla are the kings of the Europa League. Why would we assume that Manchester United would win this game when Sevilla have already knocked out Wolves, a side that United have had trouble with, that did well this season, qualifying for Europe again? This team will probably win it, probably beat Inter Milan or Shakhtar, and Shakhtar may beat Inter a little bit later. That's a game that will be fascinating. Shakhtar are a very talented team. I just feel that I watch a lot of La Liga, and I know how good Julen Lopetegui, the coach, is. He's made some poor personal decisions that have cost his reputation, but as a coach, I don't think there's any question in Julen Lopetegui. And how he's managed to get the best out of a lot of these guys while missing one or two of his stars, I found very impressive. Now, they did ride their luck. Bono in goal was superb and made some brilliant saves. But they won the game. And the reality, like, I'm seeing everyone on Twitter losing themselves about how United lost in a shocker. Don't really understand it.
Yeah, I suppose, well, first of all, we definitely are, I certainly am biased in terms of looking at it through looking at football in general through the prism of the Premier League. You're right in saying that.
In the US too, Joe. In the US, they're very, very guilty of that as well.
I suppose maybe it's just kind of the reverting to what you know, as opposed to being objective about it and looking at them at two squads playing in again a one-off match.
Yeah.
You know, like that's more of it. If there was two legs and it was going back to Old Trafford, you might say, well, you know, they'll figure them out for the next time. But again, that might be kind of bias and disrespectful to the prowess of Sevilla.
I think it's something crazy. Like since the turn of the century, I was looking this up the other day. La Liga has had 15 different teams in finals. Europe that's just Champions League finals as well. And then you look at the Premier League and it's 11. You look at the Europa League and it's dominated by Spain. It's dominated by Sevilla. And then next in line is Atletico Madrid. So someone was coming at me on Twitter about the Premier League and how La Liga is awful compared to the Premier. And I'm always gobsmacked by it, because you fall victim to the money and marketing, when the reality is that La Liga may be on a downturn right now a little bit, because the two main teams there are Real Madrid, Barcelona, no doubt about that, and both of them don't look as good as they were in the past few seasons. But the level of the academies in Spain and the production of young players is there for all to see, and I think you could see that even Sevilla, their recruitment under Monchi, their technical director, is next level, and he'll always go out and find the next young star or gem. Look at the production of Lucas Ocampos this season. He didn't play well yesterday, granted, but he's been their star this season. I tend to always defend other leagues in a way, because I feel that we do have our Premier League goggles on just a little bit. Yeah.
Well, look, that's why it's so good to have you on the show, Kev, to give us a better, broader perspective. Before I let you go, if you were to call the final of both the Europa League and the Champions League, who would you be going for on the balance of what you've seen so far?
All right, Champions League. You know, I said the other day on radio here in the US that I thought it was going to be an all-German final. Leipzig to beat PSG because I just think Nagelsmann is such an astute coach. Now he's going up against his mentor in Thomas Tuchel, someone who gave him his first chance when he was at Augsburg. Thomas Tuchel allowed a player by the name of Julian Nagelsmann, who wasn't fit enough to continue to play, who had knee issues, and he said to him, instead of going off and doing nothing, can you scout players for me? And that was the first chance at coaching for Nagelsmann. And look at what he's done. And he's 33 years of age now, and he's going up against Tuchel in a Champions League semi-final. And Hansi Flick over the other side, Jurgen Klopp's obviously phenomenal. So we're going through a bit of a golden era of German coaches.
German management, yeah.
I think I was leaning towards Leipzig, but my head now, just because Kylian Mbappe is back fully fit, he's the only player left in the Champions League that can really turn a game on its head by himself. And that's why I'm edging towards PSG. And I think Bayern Munich will comfortably enough dispose of Lyon 4-1, I'd say, in that game. So PSG Bayern Munich, the dream final, probably for the neutral.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to call it. I could see it being one of the most fun Champions League finals we've seen in a long time, because I can see PSG getting in behind that high line, and I can see Bayern Munich scoring against that porous enough defense up the other end. Even though PSG have had actually the best defense in the Champions League this season, I'd probably go with Bayern Munich though to win that game, maybe 3-2. And in the Europa League, Sevilla up against Inter or Shakhtar. I'll say that Shakhtar pull off the biggest upset so far.
Okay.
And I will say that Sevilla win it again, beating Shakhtar in the final 2-1.
Fantastic. So Bayern 3-2 in a shootout. And I've just taken notes there. I'm off to Paddy Power. Thanks a million for joining me. Kev, thanks a million for the chat, mate. I absolutely love chatting to you. Hopefully we get you on again in the not too distant future. And good luck with kicking off with Kev. Anyone who's watching this and want to follow up with Kev on his new show, Kicking Off with Kev Egan, please do so. I know I will be after the show.
Much appreciated. Thank you, Joe. Cheers, guys.
Thanks a million, Kev. Take it easy. Be good. And that's our show for another week, folks. Thanks a million for watching. Loads more football action coming this week. We'll have another show wrapping everything up at the end of the Champions League and the Europa League coming to you soon. In the meantime, look after yourself, be good, and take care.
Irish Media